Welcome back to Marketing Connected. I'm your host, Tjin Lee, and you're tuned into In Conversation, a series where we, as the title suggests, are in conversation with the industry's brilliant minds and experts. We have in the studio with us today, Tjin Lee, Head of Southeast Asia for Gusto Collective. She is also the founder of Mercury Integrated, an agency specialized in fashion, lifestyle, and luxury, which was acquired by Gusto in 2023. Beyond that, Tjin also founded the social enterprise Crib and grassroots movement Life Beyond Grades. Without further ado, thank you so much, Tjin, for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for the introduction.
Right, so starting off the conversation, I would love to know more about Mercury Integrated, which you founded and later sold it to Gusto Collective, where you now actually lead the Southeast Asia operations. So looking back, what was the turning point that made you decide on that move?
Well, the story goes back 25 years. I started Mercury, I think just fresh out of my first job, which was actually it's an advertising, PR, and events executive working for Club 21. So therein also are the roots for my sort of luxury and fashion background. So I started the company in year 2000, 2001, and it's just been 25 years since. So the offer, I met Gusto Hong Kong just at the tail end of COVID. And I think that it had been a lot of reflection. I think if you're ever the owner of an events company, COVID was actually a very, very tumultuous time. It's a tough time. And I think it was kind of like just a lot of soul searching, what's next, not sure what to expect. And I think when Hong Kong came in with the offer, I think it was very, very interesting to us because we believed that, well, tech really was, very, very disruptive and tech was the future. And I believed that it would be better to be a small part of something very big than to be a big part of something small. So when the opportunity presented itself, it just seemed like a perfect time to get aligned with partners that were also sort of, going places that were sort of had the same goals and visions. And that's actually how it all came about.
Right, so a blend of wanting to expand a bit more further and also in a way to deal with the COVID pandemic, which was really difficult.
Post-COVID, actually.
Post-COVID.
Yeah, so actually it was more like COVID was a time of soul searching.
Yeah.
And I think when the offer came in, it just seemed like there was something there in its future. Like you're looking for, I think, just, something that was going to be, I think, more disruptive, really. And I think I wanted to find a way to steer that team forward into the future. And I think companies that were interested or exploring in technology or in sort of new ways of communication, new ideas, sort of being, disruptive but best in class, that was actually what was appealing about Gusto.
I think all in all, it's been about 2 years. So it's around 2023 that the acquisition happened. So it's been about 2 years since Mercury joined Gusto. What would you say has been the biggest lesson you've taken from that experience as both a founder and now a leader in a larger network?
I think what's interesting is that as the owner of any boutique agency can tell you, a lot of it is just very organic. You grow and you learn and you just sort of roll with it. And there was not a lot of structure, I think, put into place, a lot of rigor. For example, like in cash flow, I think that, a lot of small agencies will, they just roll with it. They give clients the terms that, 60-day payment terms, right? And I think that was one of the first things that, that the Hong Kong team sort of educated us on how to, I think, run a ship more efficiently, how to, sort of be more streamlined about things, more strategic, more tactical. We built out an entire HR department, a full accounts team. So I know it may sound odd that after running for 20 years that, we didn't have all that fully fleshed out, but it's very, very organic. A lot of the time when you're a small agency founder, you just sort of grow and you hire as you need. So it just didn't seem that we needed such a big HR team or such a big finance team. And today I realize how important all that really, really was. It's really leveled up the business. So that I would say is the biggest learnings that we've had. Of course, it was painful to sort of adopt some of those, that kind of rigor. But it's been really, really helpful for the team.
And would you say maybe a part of that is also because when you're a boutique agency and you're a smaller team, your focus is on the work itself.
100%.
So you don't really most of the time think of building the structure and strengthening the structure, but you want to get the work out, you want to get the clients in as well.
And like a lot of agencies, or actually even the entrepreneurs, we're creatives, right? So what it is, we thrill in the sort of creative, the ideation, coming up with, marketing ideas, campaigns. And I think we don't focus so much on the things that we should be looking at, like accounts, finance, legal, all those things, HR, all those things that, we don't excel in because we are creatives, right? So when we start out, we just think, oh, we just get the clients, we service them, we do a really great job, and everything else runs itself. So after 20 years of running a company that way, we realized that, there's so much to learn, so much to grow. And I think that being part of a bigger team has also really helped us to sort of level up.
For Gusto Collective in Singapore, Southeast Asia, which is what you're currently overseeing, I think a lot of the work that you're doing is in relation to luxury marketing, luxury branding for high-end brands, especially fashion. How do you see this space evolving over time? I feel like there's been a lot of interesting activations that we've been seeing, like on-ground activations. We see different forms of events, a lot of innovation there. Where would you say it currently stands, and do you maybe have a bit of a forecast as to where it might go in the near future?
So luxury, for me, the marketing is always about experiences. It's about experiential. It's about being sort of immersing clients into that world. Just why, as an agency that does a 360, we do events, we do social media, we do PR, we think about it holistically. So the trends that I'm seeing is that clients are looking to really tell stories, to engage, and to, of course, convert, to sort of develop brand love. And all this you can do very well when you move everything together, the PR storytelling, right? The events, the experiences, the ability to share and experience with others and to innovate, so that it's always like, people are always seeing something new or something they want to share, or something that, they want to like tell their friends that they discovered and were first to try. So that therein is where the events comes in. And of course, the social media is huge.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, like, social media must have a really big play in all of this.
So pop-ups, for example, recent pop-ups include the Margiela pop-up that they did along Beach Road, or the Polo Ralph Red pop-up that we just did during F1, or even upcoming luxury brand restaurant pop-ups that are coming, still embargoed, about to be launched. But these are all, I think, the future, the direction, and it doesn't have to be luxury. So I think that luxury just is really good training for you to sort of understand like how the very best do it. Because if you can apply that sort of that creativity and the rigor that luxury brands use, you can market anything. If you always say, if you can market, at the very highest level, you can market. If you can market, if you can market like Louis Vuitton, you can market, Giordano. And please, bad example. If you can market Giorgio Armani, you can
a bit more
market
casual.
Giordano.
Yeah.
Right? So I think, in fact, I probably think that Giordano has a bigger marketing budget than Giorgio Armani. So that's the interesting thing to play with. But if you can do this very, very well, then you'd also be able to apply that sort of same creativity, to marketing more mass brands as well.
Wow, that's very interesting, especially with like, I think the increase in collaborations between food and also like the luxury
Experiences.
brands. Yeah, experiences.
Luxury does face, I think, unique challenges in this day and age compared to previous times, because as the world has gone more and more towards social media and online consumption, online media consumption, it's not so easy to find luxury consumers. So, for example, where you're going to find, the Instagrammer whose audience can afford an $8,000 handbag. Right, so it's not like you can just work with creators with 300,000 followers and you're going to engage the right people who can afford the $8,000 handbag,
Right.
the $15,000 earrings. So it's not just about views or eyeballs anymore. When you're talking about anything above a certain price point, the target audience has to be, I think, so focused, niche or specific, and also to hit those people, you'd have to work with, I think, very unique or a different kind of creator from mass creators.
Right. I think a very good insight there. So in a way, your claim to fame was also through the Audi Fashion Festival, which is very popular. Everyone knows about it. And it was a very huge thing, which you established, I think, since 2009, roughly around then. And then the Singapore Fashion Week in 2015. But I think once you reach a level that high and that big, how do you keep upping the experience and building on that to, in a way, move out of the label of being the agency behind Audi Fashion Week to building a name for the agency itself?
Actually, pulling the plug on that fashion week was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do. You think that it shapes your identity, and I wasn't sure what I think would, where we would evolve after we stopped running something as big as the Fashion Week. But in truth, I think it was also very liberating. I think it set us free because it was very, very time consuming. So I did everything from the content, getting the designers, the sponsorship sales, everything, the marketing, So it was very all encompassing. And I probably couldn't focus so much on the PR and events part of the business as I was like working just on Singapore Fashion Week or Audi Fashion Festival. So it was one of those things that I look back on as a chapter of my life that I will never regret. It was a really great way, I would say, to carve a niche for yourself and to build thought leadership. Because there are so many agencies, in Singapore, there's so many agencies in the world, but how many founders get to carve out thought leadership or to be positioned to be known for something? So I think deciding to do Audi Fashion Festival and Singapore Fashion Week allowed me to do that. It allowed us to cement our place, our position, as thought leaders in fashion, luxury, lifestyle. And it was so successful for so many years. And I only stopped in 2017 because I started to feel that I wanted to do something that was more relevant to Asia, more Asia-centric. So while Fashion Week was international Asian, I felt like it didn't give enough of a spotlight to Asian designers as much as I would have liked. So we brought in the world's biggest names. We had like Roberto Cavalli, Victoria Beckham, Carolina Herrera. We had the best names, and we brought the designers to Singapore. And it was always fantastic as opening shows. But because Asia is so, segmented, it's like I'm trying to build Fashion Week for Asian brands like, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, all at once was very, very challenging. So I think that after 11 editions of Fashion Week, I decided to hit pause on that one and just focus a little bit more on the PR and the event side of the business.
Right. Would you say that in a way it also opened a lot more doors to other opportunities?
Absolutely. I feel like Mercury would not be what it is without having done Audi Fashion Festival and Singapore Fashion Week.
Right.
So it was painful, trial by fire, I would say, running those events. I was probably only 30 years old when I ran my first one.
Wow.
And I think the enormity of it didn't strike me until much later, that I was so young, running an entire fashion week by myself with maybe 2 staff.
Wow. Just two.
Just 2.
Oh my gosh.
It was the intern and the receptionist. That was 2004,
Wow.
the first one. Yeah, so there I was running this $2 million national event with STV support. We had 30 regional media flying in. We opened with a Chanel show. We had Julian McDonald red carpet closing. We had Christopher Bailey from Burberry's coming to do a conversation.
That now.
I was only 30 or 31 years old when we did that. And I think had I been older or more aware, I would not have been quite so bold.
And ambition.
I think perhaps looking back on it, I realized that I was also able to do that because I felt like I had nothing to lose. So it was actually, I think I would say some of the best and worst years of my life, but also incredibly rewarding at the end of it all.
We do want to touch a bit on post-sale of Mercury Integrated after selling the agency. Is there something you found you have maybe a bit more time, energy, mind space, and focus to work on or do?
So the team is so good. They're running the PR, the events, the social, and I'm just in awe constantly of the work that they do. If you look at our Instagram, right, like Gusto Southeast Asia Instagram, the steady stream of events, and I think the quality of the work they do is there. So much so that they're able to do it mostly independently, which is the way it should be, because it frees me up to then look at new opportunities, to consider, I think, innovative new ways to do things, new partnerships. So the team runs so well that I'm able to focus more on strategy than being operationally involved. And I think what that looks like in the last year and the coming year is that we're really open to new opportunities. I would love to create new IP. I would love to also explore partnership, like, anything that is new and exciting, or even creating our own content. So as we used to run Fashion Week, right, I have the understanding how to run the content, the sponsorship, the partnership marketing. So we're just exploring new things, new leads, new ideas. And it's just, anything is possible.
Right. So a little bit more strategy.
Yes, a lot more
rather
strategy.
Than operations. And I also see that you have a very strong personal brand as a content creator yourself. And you have a really large following around fashion, family, and travel. What actually led you to foray into content creation and, in a sense, becoming an influencer yourself? And I would say in your 50s, nonetheless, it's really amazing that you've been able to do that.
Okay, so first I'd like to say that I prefer the word influential to influencer because I do so much more than create content, obviously. But I also think that, that it was very, very organic. So for me, starting up, it was really like, oh, there are these new platforms, Instagram, TikTok, particularly Instagram. I was like, let's find out more because it's going to be something new, something big. The clients are going to want to explore. Let's just start an account and like play with it and experiment with it. It started out so organically. I mean, and I was using it on a personal level. Really, I had a baby and he was so chubby. So it started out as a mom account, posting pictures of my chubby baby dressed up in like many fabulous, amusing costumes. And that's actually where my first few thousand followers came from. They were just in awe of this massive chubby baby. He was like 20 kilos by the time he was 2 years old.
I'm sure anyone would love
He
to
was
see a chubby baby on Instagram.
adorable chubby baby. So of course the account evolved through the years, and I also like as the children got older, I didn't want to make it about them, because I don't think that children should be made to be like in front of the camera. It's not their job, and I didn't want to expose them to having to content creators and hold up like bird's nest or some product. So I sort of like phased them out of it. I talk about it, but from a parenting perspective, I don't use the kids in the content. Like I said, I started out by just wanting to share those moments of like mom life or being a boy mama and really enjoying that, and it was super organic. So it started that way. And over time, as it became just sort of pillars rather than, just about sharing about the baby. So I think the other pillars that I love to share about would be entrepreneurship and women's empowerment. Because as you know, I run a not-for-profit organization called CRIB as well. So we have about 200 plus female founders in CRIB. So I talk a lot about sort of that entrepreneurship journey where the hard parts no one really talks about in public. I love to talk about those because it makes the entrepreneurs, the founders feel not so alone. Another pillar that I like to talk about is really just empowered aging. Because I feel like with women, we don't see enough role models out there. We think that, 40 is old. Like, no, 40 is not old. Like, 50 is powerful. Like, not old. I think you're just ascending. For me, I always feel that the older I get, the more powerful I get.
Right, so in a way, your Instagram was started just organically as your own personal account.
Just to share, and then you start to get twiddle with it, tweak with it, and go, oh, if I post this, it's a lot more engaging.
Yeah.
You post that, it gets a lot more shares. Or, oh, Instagram stories with a link are so much more effective for converting than an actual post with like, the link in the caption.
It's a test bed for yourself.
It's like this, right?
Yeah.
If you can't, how do you sell a car if you don't know how to drive? It's like when I see 22-year-old life coaches, and I'm like, how do you coach on life when you're 22 years old? You haven't yet lived life. So it's the same, I feel, with social media. If you don't get in there and play with it, experiment with it, if you're not like absolutely sort of like just entranced by it. Like for me, I find it completely intriguing. It's not work. For me, social media is captivating. I look at it and I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. The algorithm does this. When you post like this, it does that. You post with this cover instead of that cover, the actual views actually go up. Or if I post the stories after I post the Instagram itself, the stories will actually the views will spike again. You get 20% more views if you post the stories after. I mean, you just have to keep playing with it, toying with it. And if you don't play, you're not hands-on, how will you as an agency lead advise your clients on social media when you don't even have an account? Or what I hear most often is people who say, I have an account, but I don't use it. I just look at to look at what other people are doing. I'm like, well, if you're not using it, it's like you're not driving the car. How do you explain, how the horsepower works? How do you explain all the details, all that if you're just looking at it? So I think for me, I think that's the thing that I enjoy most is that I really, really love what I do with social media.
That's a very good analogy. Looking at social media like it's a car. And also your social media page grows with you.
It does. It evolves
in the years.
It's really not about posting pictures of your latte anymore. It's not about a pretty aesthetic feed. It's not about any of that. For me, it's a tone of voice. It's really understanding your audience, and that really empowers you when you think about, I think, your clients' content and how to really engage, or even the fact that I literally have to tell clients, you have 0.8 seconds to capture someone's attention. We used to think it was 3 seconds. The answer is 0.8 before someone decides whether they're going to scroll past your picture or they're going to pause and look at it. So if you're going to start with a product picture of me holding up your products, that 0.8 seconds, you're gone. So I know that a lot of clients, because they don't play with it, they don't understand that this 0.8 seconds is crucial. And they think, oh, but this is what HQ is doing.
I think they want the product there.
They do want the product there.
They want the product there, but it doesn't really work the same.
You can post in the cover of the reel, but it should not be the first 0.8 seconds. It needs to start with, for example, a challenge that or something needs to be addressed. So, for example, if you're like, if you have dry skin, then it's about the dry skin, not the product, at the start,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned also that your Instagram page and your social media talks about women empowerment and also about aging. Is there any form of ageism in the industry that you might have like realized or taken note of?
I think that it definitely exists, but I think that I think great steps have been taken. I think as more people see more role models coming forward, and I mean this much is true, right? I mean there's so much research that shows now that you become happiest 50 and be over. I mean, there's so much research that shows, you start out, as a fairly happy child, and then it goes down in your 20s, 30s, and 40s because you have to work so hard, spend so long, And then at 50, you sort of realize that, like DGAF, and what
Right.
other people think isn't really that important, and all the things that you think are so important actually are not that important. And then you sort of become free and much happier. You focus on relationships rather than things. You just sort of it goes on a huge uptick. And don't forget, if you are a client, right, and you're thinking about like how to increase spend, right? Who's got the most budget? We got to follow the money. It's Gen X, guys. It's Gen X. I know we're obsessed with Gen Z. We're all obsessed with Gen Z. We're so intrigued. We want to unlock what makes them love a brand. How to be authentic with Gen Z. But let's not also forget that Gen X is where the money is
I agree with that. That's where the wallets are the biggest.
for now.
They've
right?
earned
Now.
enough over the years. They've already worked through.
So show us some relevant content. Show us something that Gen X can relate to. So I think it's great. But when you have anti-aging products on 25-year-olds, that's not really going to resonate with your core audience.
I think that's so true because like you say, we've been seeing a lot of Gen Z content, but Gen X is also a very huge generation in themselves. There's so many people there, a lot of opportunity. So brands, if you've heard that.
And I don't
Jump
think,
on
I don't
that
think it's
train.
about stereotyping or it's not about pillars. It's not Gen X versus millennials versus Gen Z. It's not that. I think it's really about inclusive marketing or looking at it and going, okay, we have a campaign with 12 content creators.
Yeah.
Let's make sure there's a mix, Let's make sure not 11 out of 12 are, are Gen Z. Let's mix it up. Let's have a good diversity so that the product looks relevant across all markets.
All-inclusive marketing. Very good tip and insight there. You've also been in the industry for quite some time. Like you say, you've started the Audi Fashion Festival. So that's been quite a while. And I think with all of those years comes all sorts of perceptions about your journey and how you've got to where you are now. What do you think people often misunderstand about where you got to where you are today? And how have you been dealing with that?
I think the misunderstanding is that, but I understand why they would think so. Because if you look at my social media today, it just looks like I'm traveling, I'm doing family time, I'm eating at nice places, I'm on the red carpet. It just looks like, that the team was born overnight and it emerged as this amazing, wonderful team working with all the best clients, the dream clients. Honestly, the clients we work with today are the clients I dreamed of when I was like 25 years old. You asked me to make a wish list of clients I would have longed to work with. It is exactly the clients we have today.
It's like those dream boards.
It is a
have.
vision board.
Vision
my
boards,
client list is the vision board come true. And so proud of that, so proud of the team, so proud of the work. But nobody saw the hard work it took to get there, to actually get there. Nobody gives you a chance when you're a startup agency. We want to do luxury, you got to really build your way up. So I think it was very challenging. The early years were wrought with things that people don't see, and I know many startups will get this: the cash flow issues. Who taught you about cash flow? I think when you're a startup entrepreneur, I mean all these things that we didn't sort of register. Or as the team grows, the HR problems, or as the team evolved even further, sort of like the whole management progression. How do you train people? How do you all that nobody taught us. We're all doing sort of our businesses for the first time, or rather I was, and it was a real struggle. I think a lot of just imposter syndrome is very real, and just a lot of struggle and a lot of just self-doubt along the way that people don't see. Or the first events, I mean, that very first fashion week, you wouldn't have thought I was the organizer because I was back there packing door gifts, putting water bottles on every seat, along with the team. Well, the team was two people, right? The receptionist and the intern. So along with all the volunteers, thank you, LaSalle and NAFA. Thank you for the interns. So along with the interns and the volunteers, I was out there putting bottled water on the seats, putting door gifts into bags, handing out press releases, where people came in. I did it all. And I think that unless you've done it all, you also won't really understand how to run a team. You don't just run it top down. I think I really worked my way, I think through all the different stages and realizing that as the company grew bigger and bigger, you face different challenges at different steps of the way. And running a business is just it's really not easy. I think there are clients that defaulted. There were clients that unexpected things, and there were really rough times, rocky times, and if you're able to power through all that, you learn, and the more you learn, the stronger you get.
To wrap up this conversation, it would be very great to touch on this question. So, Tjin, as someone who has worn so many hats, entrepreneur, you got content creator, and now you're regional leader for Southeast Asia, what's been the most rewarding part of the journey thus far?
The most rewarding part of the journey, I would say, is being able to impact the journeys of the people who have come along with me. I think of all the things that I've done, it gives me the most pride, most satisfaction, and most joy to see the core team that I've built. Albert, Dorothy, Cindy, Rishan, Cheryl, the team that have actually followed me for more than 10 years, 15 years.
Wow,
They've really journeyed with me. I've seen them grow. I've seen the clients grow. I've seen the entrepreneurs we support with Crip grow, evolve. I think it's just people that, I think really make what I do, I think, just so rewarding. I just love what I do.
Thank you so much for your insights and being part of In Conversation at Marketing Connected.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right, and on that note, for the listeners out there, don't worry. Although this interview with Tjin Lee of Gusto Collective is over, you can still head on over to Marketing Connected on Spotify or YouTube or any of your favorite podcast platforms to catch more In Conversation episodes or other podcast series. Be sure to follow us on Marketing Interactive's social media pages such as LinkedIn, Telegram, Facebook, and Instagram. Once again, thank you for tuning in to Marketing Connected, brought to you by Marketing Interactive. Goodbye, everyone.